the time on the seating chart that you start. Students must record all responses on their answer document before the end of the 4-hour time period. And once that 4-hour time period has ended, test administrator instructing students with testing to put down their pencils and close their book, and you record the stop time on the seating chart. And in the book, it has where you say the directions. Those are not included in the 4-hour time limit. Now, here's the tricky part. Breaks are allowed, and some are included in the time limit, and some are not. And they actually have published 2 different versions of this, but I call this right. Breaks that are included in the 4-hour time limit. You're not allowed to stop the clock for water breaks, bathroom breaks, snack breaks, short physical or mental breaks. Breaks not included in the 4-hour time limit, and you are required to stop and restart the clock with lunch, emergency situations, but this consolidation movement of students in the testing area, those are only going to be your extended time. But medical breaks to the nurse. Canvassers be aware that the time clock will stop for students who go to the nurse for medical reasons. The test administrator must document the time that the student stops and restarts the test and make the student aware of his or her adjusted testing time. I actually in Austin stood up and said, wait a minute, is this a scheduled nurse's break? Like if you have a diabetic? Or is this like anybody who gets a headache? It is anybody. So, if a student, and we're not just announcing this, because we don't want 500 people in nurse. If a student says, I need to go to the nurse, you might say, are you sure? But if they need to go to the nurse, you're going to have some forms like this. You're going to put that student name, you're going to put the date. What time did they originally start that assessment, which is going to be on your seating chart? What time did they stop to go to the nurse? Then tell that student very quietly, okay, when you get through, you'll go to Coach Williams' room. You're the backup tester for the first part. So then the hall monitor, you hand that hall monitor that student's test booklet, answer document, any of their stuff. You put this note on it. That hall monitor is going to take that to Coach Williams, and whether that student be down in the nurse's office 20 minutes, they were actually saying one student last year was down there an hour and a half, an 8th grader. We would have to accommodate that. They will come back. Coach Williams, you are going to put the time that student restarted, and you're going to have to figure out when their 4 hours would end. Now, what's so tricky, and we know Coach can do it, he might have 10 different people in there.
Spreadsheet.
I can't computer on.
Yeah.
In that situation,
So anybody that goes to the nurse from our room then becomes Coach Williams' property. They don't come back to
Well,
us.
we're trying to determine as a policy where we're cutting that line off. If we're saying if it's that we're going to keep their time running for if it's 15 minutes, they're just going to lose 15 minutes of test time. If we're saying that, because y'all are sitting there shaking your head no, but when you have 150 kids that start catching on and going to the nurse, we're going to have issues.
Okay, but we don't announce it.
we
Well, no, I'm
haven't
saying-
had a lot of that in the past, but
I don't think we have it this year. We might have it.
but here's the next thing. I've already had
Our
parents.
EOC tests are split up. They're not all together. So the word will get around. Just telling y'all, there needs to be something set in stone, and we need to have some buffer room in there, or
They're
we're
not
going to have a
getting extra
logistical
time.
nightmare.
They're not going to get extra time. Because Brandon said, well, then everybody's going to go. And I said, no, they don't get that extra time.
No.
They still just get 4 hours. It's just that where these students may finish at 12:30, they might finish at 1 or something.
So what I'm saying is that we're trying to determine, administration, think about, all the different things that are going on. If we're going to create a policy that says that 15 minutes or more, then that's when they're going to, you'll watch your clock. If they come back within that amount of time, they come back down, they sit in your classroom and they begin. If it's past that, you watch the clock, you see that it's past that, you fill the sheet out with their answer document, and you hand it to the hall monitor, so when that student comes back, that hall monitor just escorts them to that room. That's what we're looking at right now.
You're going to have to put what time they leave regardless, so you know how many minutes it's going
Yes.
on and things like that. State didn't think that one out. Another thing that if students come in late, we'll have to send them to a room. So if you have students that are absent, I'll be coming and getting their books, because if they show up, they said we have to test them as long as we still have the 4 hours. Now, if you have kids, if you are testing students with extended time and they need to go to the nurse, you don't have to fill anything out. They go to the nurse, they say 3 hours, they come back, it's over at 3:30, regardless of how long they've been in the nurse. And extended time doesn't mean they get 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon. Extended time means they get until the end of the published school day. And we will take a lunch break and then start back, with, testing. So, and when we change testing rooms, we're making sure that, test administrators or people are handling the materials that have been trained. Students cannot carry their own booklet. We will redo the seating chart. And in the new room, the same thing goes for the bulletin boards and things like that. Follow your instructions verbatim. Taxes on time. And of course, it's a 4-hour time limit from the time that we say all the directions and then we start. And I talked to Mr. Denard about this. I've always, y'all can get your books, come get all your books, come get all your books. And then we would have a group of students that, had a prayer in the hall. And I said, Mr. Denard, that's fine on them, of course, if they want to pray. I think they need to pray. But they need to be in that room by the time that tardy bell rings, because we got to start. And we got to start. We want to start with those directions and get it going, because of cafeteria use. We've got others that are. It would be a nightmare in the cafeteria. So we want our target start time to be at least by 8:30. So we have our 4 hours and we dismiss it at 12:30. Don't rephrase or make any additions to any part of the test. Now, it's a little trickier this year, because if you notice these tags, we used to have tags modified and everything is in this one book. So it'll say, if you're giving this one, say this, but if you're not giving this one, don't say this over here. I go through there and highlight, I draw a box around what I'm supposed to be saying. Because I looked through it and I was going, it was confusing. So make sure, don't wait until the day of to look at that, okay? I haven't finished this one yet. It doesn't have as many tabs, but that's the end of the course. Okay. We're going to fill in the test taking.
Where's that at
And the test taking info, the score code, you need to fill in the score code, and we'll be looking at that for the end of the course documents. They say those they're going to be different. We haven't looked at those yet. We're going to if we have a student that's here now that was not here during snapshot, and we don't get a label, I'll take care of all of that bubbling in. Students are not supposed to write anything on that answer document or color any of the little stuff in. They're going to have they're either going to have a label that has it all, or I'm going to do it for them. If they tell you something's wrong, you just make me a note, but tell them don't mark anything on the front of that answer document. Because if they do, it overrides what is there, and then it could be incorrect, and then that's a nightmare, okay? It will destroy any science and math charts with tags that have been written on. And then we're going to look at just some handouts. We looked at the STAR, the time limits, policies, and procedures. We looked at the front of that. Lunches. The students that have been for extended period to the nurse, or they have extended time, we will stop them and resume after lunch, and we will have a lunch probably in the student center. We'll know that. You also have to communicate orally or in writing the amount of time left to test in 1 hour intervals, and if desired in shorter intervals during the last hour. I haven't talked to Brandon about this, but we will decide, and it will be uniform, how we do it. But we do have to, you have 3 hours left, you have to, and it'll tell you, but we have to remember that. You can either do that in writing or orally. Later writing students, they have to be allowed 4 hours to take the test, so we've made arrangements for that. We're not doing multiple test sessions. Extended time, again, the extra time is just until the end of the school day. We don't have any extra days right now. The dictionary policy, if you're giving tax, and it's the same as always, it's on page 39 of this book. The dictionary policy is this bright sheet that looks like this. You will be getting your dictionaries and things like that. You don't have to worry about these meaningless right things, because we'll take care of that. The calculator policy's in there. The grading and score codes, this is much as they've given us. Looks like absent other, previously met passing standard. This is on STAR, so nobody will have done that. There's just some different things. I'm gonna be marking these like for linguistic accommodations or for accommodations. I'm just asking if you have a student and you'll know if they have accommodations to double check it. You also have proper testing procedures, how the chart should be completed. There's a lot of different questions and answers that were good in there. Now, I've given you, this sheet tells you kind of where you're going to be in March, and I've given you maps for each day of March so you know where you're located. April is tentatively put together, and I already know we had a student come in yesterday from Puerto Rico that will be on tax lat, so I already know that's going to be changing because I have to pull Miss Denny from where I have her because she'll be getting that lat. Please notice, like, some of you that are given an end of course in writing, and then you'll have the same kids for reading. That end of course writing, there's no oral, there's no reading assistance at all on the writing. On the reading, those kids, if they have it as an accommodation, can have it on the reading test, but not the writing. I will be sending an email and say, can you come during your conference on this day or this day or this day, and going over exactly what you're doing. One or two of you have, may have a whole group of tax, but one tax item. So there may be something in the manual you have to say a little different, okay? And then I don't have May yet, so we'll have May. That's it. You got any questions?
I'm just glad that you are doing that.
I can organize a board.
I cannot.
It is a war.
It is a board.
I just wanted to know where we were.
Oh, if you will just leave, if you'll sign and fill out that oath, leave it on the table and I'll collect those.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly go over my stuff, and then I'll let you go. But I need y'all to pay attention, because the things I want to address, it's not each person individually, but these are usually what I address with people individually, but it's become an issue more campus-wide. I'm having a reoccurring issue with parents and with even your counterparts, teachers, coaches, SPED people, saying that we're having a tough time getting grades in the grade book, all right, and getting them in time. We've had issues with eligibility. We've had issues with parents coming up because they're checking the portal, and for 2 or 3 weeks, grades aren't being changed. And remember, at the beginning of the year, I talked to you about this, and I said, listen, I'm going to treat you as professionals. I'm not going to go behind you and check to see if you're entering grades. I'm not going to go behind you and see if you're keeping your lesson plans up. But what's happening is I'm getting beat up by parents because they're calling up here complaining to me that this isn't being done, or this isn't being done, or that's not being done. So what I'm telling you is I realize you're busy. I realize you have a lot on your plate. But this stuff has to happen. Because my philosophy is we have to be in the idea of eliminating excuses. You cannot hold a kid accountable if we haven't done our end of the job, okay? And this is the thing that frustrates me, is when a parent calls me and they're like, well, this teacher, is just killing my kid because they keep turning late work in, but they won't post their grades on time. Because you've told me your policy is that they have to have them in at the end of every Friday. That's hard for me to defend. Do you understand what I'm saying? When a teacher pounds a kid for not turning their work in, but you're not getting your grades in, that's a double standard, and we talked about that. You cannot do that. Lesson plans. Remember, they've got to be done by the time Monday starts of that week. It's in the handbook. All right? Eliminate the excuses. It's also difficult for me to understand after 5 weeks you only have 2 grades in the grade book, and how you're going to reach 10 in 2 weeks or in 1 week. When that's in the handbook, that it specifies that you have to have at least 10 grades in the grade book. Okay? If you're doing special projects and you want to work that out with me at the beginning of the 6 weeks, we can talk. But that's not happening. And what's happening is we're having like zeros run all the way through, or we're having like a 30, and then at the end, the kid miraculously passes, or a kid that has an 80 miraculously fails at the very end. And then I have parents just pulling their hair out coming to me. All right? If you have missing grades, put it in. Don't put a 0. Okay? And don't put I's. It doesn't calculate. People need to know that stuff. If you're unsure about what you need to put for missing grades or incompletes or stuff like that, please come talk to me or talk to Pam.
Put an I at the end of the 6 weeks when you post it, if there's a grade not in there, so then it shows up on the report card.
As an incomplete.
Mhm.
But when you're leaving it blank or you're putting zeros, it gives false messages to parents. So make sure you take care of that stuff, all right? Duty, I talked to the department heads. 2 department heads have given me their duty rosters for this 6 weeks. Each 6 weeks, please give me that, because I love Mr. Clifton, but he's got to have his people where they need to be. And I know it's important because this last week we had a mix-up. Somebody wasn't covering. We had an angry parent chewing their kid out in the parking lot, chased them in the building, was chasing them around the building, chewing them out. And if we had had a parent or a teacher in their position, that could have stopped, because there are a lot of kids that, unfortunately, that kid was subjected to that. I don't know what happens at home, but also there were other kids that witnessed it, okay, which can be even more embarrassing for that child. So that's why I'm saying things like that you could never think of will happen if we don't have our people on duty. So make sure that we're addressing those things. Fire alarms, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I appreciate the way y'all handled it, y'all's patience, y'all's understanding. I know y'all probably wanting to kick me. I'm sorry. I've challenged the powers that be above me that this needs to be taken care of. He assures me that it's being handled. That's all I can do, all right? Because y'all know how much I value instructional time. So that's one of those things that I can only do so much. Social sites. Please don't post responses or anything on Facebook during the school day, okay? We're already in microscopes enough with this stuff. Stay off of them. Stay away from them. If you're using it for school-related purposes, it needs to be specifically for your class. But anything else, stay off of it during school time, because those are the types of things that can get us into trouble. All I'm just asking is those duties or those responsibilities that that are expected of you to just let. I know you get busy, and I know you get behind, and you get frustrated, and you feel like you're just being able to tread water. I've heard many of you come to my office and close the door and say, I've got so many things going on, I don't think I'm doing any of them right. I understand that. We're all there. I'm working as hard as I can to make your jobs as easy as I can, but y'all got to help me by doing those things that can keep the parents at bay, because they're as stressed as you are, all right? And they're their kids. So, and like I said, it's hard to defend when you're pounding a kid for late work and you're not getting your grades in on time. So please take care of that, all right? I wanted to finish with this because I thought it was awesome. Stacy Ratliff's husband sent this to us. It's called The Blueberry Story. It's a teacher gives a businessman a lesson. I'm sure y'all heard in a lot of the media lately about school is archaic. They need to run it more like a business. Y'all don't know what you're doing. And so this gentleman named Jamie Robert Volmir, he wrote an article, and he said, if I ran my business the way you people operate your schools, I wouldn't be in business very long. I stood in an auditorium filled with outraged teachers who were becoming angrier by the minute. My speech had entirely consumed their precious 90 minutes of in-service. Their initial icy glares had turned to restless agitation. You could cut the hostility with a knife. I represented a group of business people dedicated to improving public schools. I was an executive at an ice cream company that became famous in the middle 1980s when People magazine chose our Blueberry as the best ice cream in America. I was convinced of two things. First, public schools needed a change. They were archaic, selecting and sorting mechanisms designed for the industrial age and out of step with the needs of the emerging knowledge society. Second, educators were a major part of the problem. They resisted change, hunkered down in their feathered nest, protected by tenure, shielded by bureaucratic monopoly. They needed to look to business. We knew how to produce quality, 0 defects, TQM, total quality management, continuous improvement.
In retrospect, the speech was perfectly balanced, equal parts ignorance and arrogance. As soon as I finished, a woman's hand shot up. She appeared polite, pleasant. She was, in fact, a razor-edged, veteran high school English teacher who had been waiting to unload. She began quietly. "We are told, sir, that you manage a company that makes good ice cream." I smugly replied, "The best in America, ma'am." "How nice," she said. "Is it rich and smooth?" 16% butterfat, I crowed. "Premium ingredients?" she inquired. "Super premium, nothing but AAA. I was on a roll. I never saw the next line coming. "Mr. Volmir," she said, leaning forward with her wicked eyebrow raised in the sky. "When you're standing on your receiving dock and you see inferior shipments of blueberries arrive, what do? In the silence of that room, I could hear the trap snap. I was dead meat. Well, what was I going to lie? "I send them back." "That's right," she barked. "And we can never send back our blueberries. We take them rich, big, small, poor, gifted, exceptional, abused, frightened, confident, homeless, rude, and brilliant. We take them with ADHD, junior regulatory arthritis, English as a second language. We take them all, every one of them. And at that, Mr. Volmir, that is why we are not a business. We're a school." In an explosion, all 290 teachers, principals, bus drivers, aides, custodians, and secretaries jumped to their feet and yelled, "Yay, blueberries, blueberries!" And so began my long transformation. Since then, I have visited hundreds of schools. I've learned that school is not a business. Schools are unable to control the quality of their raw material. They're dependent upon you're going to have to help me with this, vagaries? I was pretty close to something inappropriate. Vagaries.
Vagaries.
Vagaries? Okay. Vagaries of politics. Somebody needs to tell me that later what that means. For a reliable revenue stream, and they are constantly mauled by a howling horde of desperate, competing consumer groups that would send the best CEO screaming into the night. None of this negates the need for change. We must change what, when, how we teach to give all children the maximum opportunity to thrive in the post-industrial society. But educators cannot do this alone. These changes can occur only with the understanding, trust, permission, and active support of the surrounding community. For the most important thing I've learned is that schools reflect the attitudes, beliefs, and health of the communities they serve. And therefore, to improve public education means more than changing our school. It means changing America. I thought that was pretty powerful for a businessman to see that and realize that and spend the time. And that's why I just wanted to tell y'all about these things that I was harping on. We cannot build the trust in the community if we aren't doing our part 100%. If they don't feel like they can trust us, then they don't think that, or they're not going to see us as professionals. And many times we get angry because we're looked down upon. Because people say, oh, you're just a teacher or whatever. And they don't treat what we do as a profession. But sometimes we are our own worst enemy because we aren't doing the things for people to see us in that light. And it's acting appropriately, it's carrying ourselves appropriately, it's treating their kids appropriately and professionally. It's the things that we don't even realize we do that we sabotage ourselves. So what I just want to encourage you with is there are business people out there that just need to be educated in what we do. And they've forgotten because they were a child in the system and they haven't gone back, is that we've got to do our part so that we can change other people in our community. I'm planning on, also, with what I'm presenting at the board meeting, I'm planning on also reading that. I sent the email out earlier if you were wanting to say anything. Like I've said before, please be positive. Please only present the facts. And if you're wanting to, just show your heart. But let me know because I don't want us duplicating things that we're saying because I want it to be concise and I want it to be to the point. But I appreciate it. I appreciate Pam. She comes in my office and she melts my mind every time she comes in there with all the things and all the balls that she has to juggle and all the things that we have to plan and get through. It's pretty daunting, but it's fantastic to know that she's in that corner doing that. But and I'm excited that y'all are in y'all's corner doing what y'all do. Y'all do a fantastic job. I can tell you it's going to be very evident when I present at the board meeting how much y'all have actually done. It makes me proud. Thank y'all.